Salt and spray mingled on Euron Greyjoy's lips as silence knifed through the sunset-stained waters off Old Wick. The sea was calm, yet a hush lay heavy over the deck, for the Crow's Eye had forbidden song and laughter since dawn. His crew obeyed him more out of dread than devotion. The Summer Isles flute player with fingers missing, the mute oarsman whose tongues had been cut, the Myrish pilot blinded in one eye for questioning his course. They watched him now from the corners of their eyes, silent as gulls atop a corpse-strewn raft. Euron stood at the prow clad in the black leather longcoat he favored, the moon and star patches glimmering purple. Wind hissed through the crow's feather mantle at his shoulders, and his single good eye, blue, bright, relentlessly hungry, scoured the horizon. Somewhere beyond the crimson rim the world was changing. He could taste it as surely as he tasted the salt. Yet it was not horizon or tide that consumed his mind. It was the small iron lockbox cradled in both his gloved hands, its surface slick with brine, runes half erased by age and sea. The reeds of the Shield Islands had clung to it when the divers hauled it from a dead man's strongbox far beneath the kelp. He did not open it at once. Euron savored anticipation the way other men savored wine. He turned the box over, listening to something inside shift with a damp, gritty scrape. Once, long ago in Korth, he had heard a tale whispered by a warlock who'd traded his teeth for secrets. Dragons lay only once, the blue-lipped mage had said, shivering after a single thimble of shade of the evening. Yet the fire in their eggs endures for centuries, waiting for blood and breath and the right kind of madness. Euron's mouth split in a grin. Madness he possessed in abundance. When silence reached a lonely cove on the leeward side of Old Wick, the moon rode high. The Crow's Eye commanded the ship anchored beneath a cliff where waves pummeled basalt like distant drums. Torches studded the deck, their flames shuddering in the damp wind. He ordered everyone aft. Only the dusky woman from Aeth remained beside him. Her name had once been Laenys, but he called her Polliver in mockery of some long-dead septon. She had been silent since Euron had pulled out her tongue 3 crossings ago. But her fear breathed through every tremor of her slight frame as she held a small coal brazier on an iron tripod. Coals glowed crimson, flecked with living gold. Euron knelt, setting the box upon a weather-worn barrel. The lock was crusted shut, yet one twist of his dagger shattered it like sugar. He peeled away the corroded hinges. The lid came free with a moan of metal. Inside lay a stone the size of a child's head. No, not stone. Shell. Scales overlapped like layers of obsidian, yet each was veined with threads of faint pearl and garnet. Even cold, it seemed alive, shadows sliding beneath its surface like sparks trapped in syrup. He brushed off rotted velvet and lifted it with both hands. It was heavier than iron, warmer than flesh. Silence's deck crew gasped as one. Even the mute oarsmen drank in air with sharp whistles. Euron drank in their awe. A dragon's egg, he murmured, voice low and rapturous. He pressed it to his breast. My dragon, my doom, my glory. He remembered stories of Valyrians flaying captives to waken fire within stony shells, remembered that warlock's words, blood and breath and madness. The edge of his dagger kissed his palm, drawing a thin red line that steamed in the night air. He let droplets patter over the shell. The egg pulsed once, soft, subtle. Or was it his own heart? Polliver whined, a high, wordless plea. Euron's grin widened. Feed the fire, he told her. She set the brazier on the deck and knelt to fan the coals. Euron placed the egg atop them. Acrid smoke rose, embers licked the scales, lighting hidden fissures in molten orange. Wind gusted hard. Sails snapped. Somewhere below, the hull groaned as though deep water stirred. The world drew a breath. He kept the knife ready. A second cut, deeper, painted his forearm. Blood sizzled where it spattered the egg. Scales flared, each a tiny ember. The crew fell to their knees, some sobbing, others laughing in terror. Thunder rolled across the starlight. Euron threw back his head and laughed with it. Let the krakens hear. Let the drowned god tremble. He was forging a new god on his deck, one of flame and wing, and it would bear him skyward. But all gods demand sacrifice. He turned to the nearest deckhand, a Braavosi youth with a scar tattooed along his jaw. "Hold it," Euron said. Gesture casual, commanding. The boy obeyed, hands shaking as they gripped the blistering shell. The instant, flesh met scale. Smoke hissed, skin seared, and the youth screamed. His scream fed the night. Euron watched the egg's glow brighten, veins of fire webbing outward. He nodded in satisfaction and plunged his dagger into the boy's belly, ripping sideways to spill life across the coals. Blood and breath and madness. Polliver shrieked without words. The deck rocked beneath them. From the cliff above, watchers might have sworn that the torches aboard Silence guttered with dreams of draconic wings. At dawn, the egg rested in a cedar chest, lined with lamb's wool beside Euron's bunk. The Braavosi's corpse had gone overboard during the night. Though crimson footprints still haunted the planks, the glow had dimmed to a sullen ember as if conserving strength. Euron stroked its curved surface, imagining the serpent coiled within. Would it hatch? He thought of Daenerys Targaryen's pyre across the far world, of how the mother of dragons birthed hers amid smoke and death. He had no burning husband to offer, yet the Iron Isles abounded with pyres waiting to be lit. He summoned his quartermaster. Heron Pike entered, a brute whose face was a map of healed cuts. "My king?" he rasped. Heron called him that now. They all did since the king's moot on Great Wake. But he spoke the word with fear, not faith. "Course east," Euron said, not looking up. "We sail for Pike by way of the Arbor. Wine Islands burn prettily, and their lords keep fine captives." Heron swallowed hard. "The Red Wine fleet guards the straits, Captain." "Let them," Euron answered. "A fleet is wood, and wood burns." He lifted the egg. "And fire rides with us." Heron's gaze clung to the shell, pupils wide. "A myth," he whispered. "Myths are just memories of the future." Euron laughed softly, savoring the words. "Ready the black powder casks. Silence shall roar louder than any dragon, until the egg roars louder still." Known? The arbor rose green and gold on the horizon 3 weeks later. Vineyards terraced the hillsides like layered tapestries. White villas shimmered in the midsummer haze. Euron viewed them through a spyglass, noting the anchored war galleys with their grape cluster banners. He counted sails marking patrol routes. His smile never cracked. Night fell moonless. Silence and 3 longships he'd taken from Harlaw skulked through shoals, guided by a smuggler's knowledge stolen from a Vinetown pilot, now missing 2 eyes. Oars dipped without splash. Dark sails were furled. When they beached beneath an orchard heavy with sweetleaf, Euron led 100 reavers ashore, faces blackened with lamp soot, daggers greased to slide silent. The abbey of the Pardoned Maidens slept among olive trees half a mile inland. Bells chimed only at dawn. Its scarlet-roofed dormitories housed 200 young women pledged to yield wine for the faith. Euron wanted casks, yes. But sweeter still were hearts to fuel hatchling's furnace. Torches burned the abbey red by the time the bells finally clanged, too late. Smoke trailed skyward, carrying prayers that curled into ash. Euron strode across the cloister courtyard where flames licked fallen statues of the Seven. He dragged 3 captives behind him with silver chains. Maidens clad in shift gowns, hair shorn in patches where hands had torn. Their sobs were thin. The air stank of scorched stone, of spilled wine and blood. He brought them to a cul-de-sac of mossy stone near an empty fountain. There he knelt, set the dragon egg atop the basin rim, and bade the girls kneel opposite. They pleaded, one spat at him. So he broke her nose. He built a pyre of wooden benches splashed with arbor gold, laid the girls atop like pale logs. He sprinkled them with shattered glass from the abbey's rose window, shards still warm from ruin. When he lit the tinder, oak chips soaked in whale oil. The blaze answered greedily, gulping down screams. Euron held the egg above the flames. Again, it drank heat, drank agony. Cracks, so slender one blink might miss, threaded across the obsidian scales. Luminous ichor glimmered within, ruby streaks coursing like living lightning. The sense of burning flesh and fermenting grapes mingled heavily, and Euron tilted back his head, breathing deep. Something moved inside the shell, a scrape like talon on stone. The reavers fell silent. Wind seemed to shun the courtyard. The only sound was the crackle of the pyre and the distant clash of alarm bells down in Vintown. A thin trill issued from within the egg, keening and uncertain, the cry of a thing waking in darkness. Scales split wider. Heat belched outward, coals brightened white. The pyre sagged and collapsed, yet flames only climbed higher. Shadows writhed across Euron's face. He saw shapes in them, wings unfolding, a maw yawning, teeth like forged needles. He pressed the egg to his heart and spoke to it in High Valyrian, voice thick and husky. Zuldritzes, Detarye, au your religon Issa. Dragon of mine, you are loved. The shell held fast, but the fissures widened. Something within sought the world. Not yet, Euron thought. Not here. He snatched up a damp sailcloth, smothered the flames before the egg could fully birth. Smoke billowed, embers died protesting. The cracks dimmed, but the shell now felt alive, throbbing like a second heart. He secured it in a net of chainmail and pressed parchment over each fissure, sealing heat inside with beeswax. The creature within struck the shell once, twice, then subsided, listening perhaps to the voice of its sire. Soon, Euron crooned, "Eight pike, you shall drink storm and salt, and all Westeros shall hear your birth scream." Word of the Abbey's destruction reached Old Town before the sun set on the arbor. Ravens beat the sky ragged. The Redwyne fleet surged from their deep-water moorings with 40 dromons, but silence was already gone. Gliding northward under cover of fog conjured by Euron's sail mages, 2 Pentoshi weatherworkers who'd sworn oaths on iron knives. Behind them, the arbor burned in scattered blazes. Barns, wine presses, and 2 keep towers turned to beacons of outrage. The egg pulsed nightly now, each beat steady as breakers on a reef. Euron slept scarcely at all, content to sit in his cabin stroking its warming shell, singing in the tongue of old Valyria. Songs half remembered from a childhood of stolen lore. Lullabies that once shattered mountains when sung by dragon lords atop their timeless fortresses. On the 4th night, a voice answered his song. Not in words, but in sense. Hunger, loneliness, a vast, coiling anger at confinement. Euron drank that anger as other men drink sweet water. He promised freedom soon. He promised a sky full of prey, and a sea full of ships to burn. They rounded Fair Isle on a moonless tide marked by floating driftwood from some unseen battle. Signals from Ironborn scout longships told of Lannister blockade galleys slipping south to join Redwyne banners. Good. Let them cluster. A single hatchling's flame could turn 10 fleets to cinder. But there was one enemy Euron feared might seize his prize before it hatched. The Silver Queen across the world whose dragons soared already. If Daenerys Targaryen learned of his egg, she would come. She would summon storms, armies, prophecies. Euron admired her audacity. He meant to match it, bloody act for bloody act. Silence cut across the Ironman's Bay as summer storms gathered. Lightning licked black clouds, and thunder boomed like stone on shield. Euron stood at the prow, cloaked in the salt rain, egg clutched beneath one arm wrapped in oil silk. When Pike's jagged towers pierced the squall, a laugh tore from his chest so raw it might have been a sob. Home, he thought, but home remained in fire. The assembled captains met him in the Sea Tower Hall, its windows rattling with wind and spray. Fat Eric Ironmaker glowered. Torwald Browntooth spat on the rushes. They did not like the debts their king had incurred sacking the Reach, nor the hostages he'd slain to bleed out prophecy. Yet they feared him. Euron made them kneel. His men hauled in 3 iron-banded chests of arbor wine, sloshing purple. He promised feasts when the storm abated, promised that every man who bent the knee would taste dragon fire and wield it. Then he unwrapped the egg before them. Gasps rippled like harp strings cut. Even the priest, Euron Damfair, froze, seaweed beard dripping on his bare chest. The egg glowed, definite, alive. Cracks spider-webbed luminous gold. A sulfuric tang filled the air, sharp as struck flint. Kneel. Euron whispered. They knelt. He commanded the hearth logs piled high, doused in whale oil. Flames roared to life, and he placed the egg within an iron cradle at the heart of the blaze. Wood screamed, tar bled black. He slit the throat of a horse as sacrifice, one of the famed sand steeds gifted by Dornish pirates, and its hot blood sizzled on the coals. The egg answered. A fissure split top to bottom. A tongue of orange light licked free. Scales peeled like petals of a nightmare flower. From within came a scream so piercing every reaver clapped hands to ears. Not a scream of pain, a scream of being. Fire burst outward. The hearth exploded, iron tines snapped. A shape unfurled amid the inferno. Serpentine, slick with birth membrane, wings still folded. It was small. Smaller than a mastiff, yet terrible in its forged majesty. Charcoal black with thin red bands along the belly. Eyes molten gold without pupil. It saw Euron, shrieked, and crawled across slagged logs toward him, trails of ember dripping from talons. He knelt, laughing, letting fate ignite around him. The hatchling lowered its head. Its nostrils flared against his palm. Stormwing. He named it then, for the tempest outside hammered stone so hard dust rained from rafters. You are mine. Stormwing's jaws parted. A gout of pale flame seared the rushes, catching a fallen banner whose kraken threads curled in heat. The captains stumbled back, faces lit by dragonfire, ancestors' terror reborn. Euron rose, Stormwing coiled around his shoulders like a living mantle, claws hooking leather. Its wings beat once, stirring sparks that danced like fireflies. Euron's eye blazed blue. Send ravens, he told Damfair. To Old Town, to King's Landing, to every nest from Skagos to Sunspear. Tell them the Crow's Eye rules sea and sky. Tell them their gods are dead. Thunder boomed agreement, and the newborn dragon answered with a shriek that split night and storm alike. Ga. K. Stormwing's first night in the Sea Tower set a rhythm that the Iron Islands would never shake. In the echoing chamber where men once measured storms and tides, the fledgling dragon paced in widening circles atop scorch-marked slate, wings half unfolded, membranous veils trembling like the sails of a ship caught in sudden gale. Euron watched from the high chair that Euron Greyjoy had occupied not 3 years past. The seat still smelled faintly of mildew and whale oil, but now the odor of sulfur overpowered everything, curling through window slits and settling into the ancient stones. The captains stayed on their knees until their joints quivered. Torches guttered, their flames cowed by the heat that rolled off the hatchling. It was no larger than a greyhound, yet its presence seemed to crowd the hall, stretching shadow into impossible shapes. When Stormwing hissed, an exhalation bright with motes of fire, men flinched and prayed to the drowned god beneath their breath, forgetting that water offered no deliverance here. Euron dismissed them before dawn. He did not want their awe dulled by fatigue. Fear must remain edged to serve him. They rose, backs stiff, and filed out beneath the dragon's glowing gaze. Euron Damfair lingered last, eyes rimmed red from smoke and sleepless terror. This abomination offends the god below, the priest rasped. Seabrine glistened on his beard, as though he had recently soaked his head in a cask of seawater. No flame may rule the realm of salt. Euron tilted his head, the ruby in his eye patch catching torchlight. Then the god below must learn new laws, priest. Fire conquers all. Damfair's jaw set. The sea abides. You forget the storms that drowned Valyria. Valyria drowned itself in hubris, Euron replied, voice low and sweet. I do not intend to drown. I intend to soar. He stroked Stormwing's neck ridge, careful of the newborn scales that cut like shards of flint. Will you bless this creature, priest, or curse it? Euron swallowed. The smell of burnt hair clung to his robes. I will pray. Pray loudly, Euron advised. The gods delight in spectacle. When the priest retreated, Stormwing hissed, tasting the air where Damfair had stood. A thin coil of dark smoke curled from its nostril, dancing in the torchlight before fading to memory. Morning broke as a pale bruise in the east. Storm clouds had marched off toward Harlaw, leaving behind shredded banners of violet and slate. Euron carried the dragon up the winding steps of the sea tower, ignoring the way iron banisters steamed beneath its talons. Above, the rookery clattered with restless ravens. Their cages rattled at the scent of predator. Some birds flung themselves against wooden slats until feathers drifted like black snow. Euron kicked a cage door open, seized the fattest raven, and offered it to Stormwing. The dragon snatched the bird in its jaws, shearing wing from body with a wet crack. Blood pattered the stair. Feathers stuck to glossy scales. The hatchling gulped once, twice, then emitted a satisfied croak. Half purr, half furnace rumble. "You learn quick," Euron crooned. "Good." He recalled the tales of how Targaryen dragon lords tempered hatchlings with endless killing. Goat, dog, child, slave, day. The more life a young dragon consumed, the faster it grew. Or so the singers claimed. Whether truth or legend, Euron meant to test it. He ascended to the open parapet, where wind cleaved the air and spindrift hurled upward from waves battering the rocks. Stormwing spread wings instinctively. Midnight membranes caught sunrise's first ember. Veins shone sullen red. The creature leaped clumsily onto the merlon, tail thrashing for balance. Below, the keep servants spotted it and fell to their bellies, shrinking to stains against weathered flagstones. Children screamed. Some fled into the great keep gardens where leafless apple trees rattled in the salt air. Euron's laugh was whipped away by gusts, but Stormwing felt the mirth and piped a shrill reply. "Soon," Euron promised, stroking a warm wingbone, "the sky will cradle us." The dragon tested the wind, launching a short hop that carried it 3 body lengths before a downdraft plucked it sideways into the wall. It landed awkwardly, but instinct trumped pain. Claws scrabbled, tail curled, wings steadied. The beast hissed more in anger than hurt. Euron's heart thundered, part paternal thrill, part ravenous ambition. Again he coaxed. Every fall is a lesson. 3 days later, the murmurs began. It started with fisherfolk whose skiffs hauled up nets empty but for blackened fish, scales smoking as though boiled alive. They blamed vents in the seabed, or devilry. Then shepherds on lonely cliff pastures found ewes, scorched to bone and ash, no flame remaining. In the alehouses of Lordsport the word dragon surfaced between cups, half laugh, half whisper. Euron allowed the stories to spread. He had sent ravens himself, letters inked in blood, sealed with broken kraken wax. One arrived in Old Town, thrust into the hands of Archmaester Belden. Another at King's Landing, delivered to the Master of Whispers, who read it twice before ordering the windows barred. To the Silver Queen beyond the narrow sea he wrote nothing. Let silence provoke her curiosity. Let rumor do the rest. Dragons are jealous creatures, he thought. They cannot abide rivals. Stormwing doubled in size by the 7th day, fueled on a diet of livestock, and, quietly, criminals from Pike's dungeons. The wails echoed through the lower bailey at dawn, muffled by wind and roar of distant surf. Few dared ask what became of the condemned. Euron Greyjoy arrived aboard Iron Victory, with 26 ships trailing like remoras. He strode into the square helm tower, salt crusting his beard, intent on challenging his elder brother's excesses. Yet when he saw Stormwing sunning atop the sea tower roof, wings spread to span the crenellations. Victarion froze, fists curling uselessly. "You play at wizardry," he accused after being ushered into Euron's private solar. The chamber smelled of cedar pitch and burnt parchment. Maps of Westeros lay splayed across a trestle table, black ink roots spidering from Pike toward the mainland. Euron sat at the head, boots planted on Balon's silver-inlaid footstool. "Wizards lack vision," Euron replied, sipping arbor gold from a horn carved with jade krakens. "I court prophecy." Victarion's voice dropped. "That thing will bring every realm against us. Even dragons need allies. Allies? We have fear. Fear bleeds away when swords stand." Euron leaned forward, single eye gleaming like a fallen star. "When my dragon takes wing, swords melt." He set aside the horn. "Stand with me, brother. The world shall drown in song. Not a drowning song, but a death song of fire." Victarion's brows knitted. He was no coward, yet the memory of burning men aboard Silence haunted him. "What do you need?" he asked at last, voice iron filing reluctantly. "Ships," Euron answered. "Strong backs, iron dotto." He tapped a map. "We sail upon Old Town when the dragon's wings cast shadow enough to blot the high tower. Its libraries burn first. The maester's chains will melt into rivers of knowledge." Victarion frowned. "Old Town is stone. Thick walls, garrison. Stone cracks under heat." Euron traced a finger along the mander. "The Reach feeds half the realm. If we burn their fields, women will eat children in King's Landing. Then the Iron Throne will kneel. Then T. Silence stretched. Rain tapped the shutters in slow, uneven heartbeats. At length Victarion gave a single nod. "Or the Ironborn," he said, as though the words forgave every wicked miracle. Euron smiled. "A thing of broken glass and forgotten gods." Stormwing's first true flight came under a gibbous moon. Euron led it to a promontory overlooking Blacktide Bay, a windswept finger of basalt honeycombed by puffin nests. He had draped the dragon in a light chain harness fashioned by Harlaw smiths, each link forged of meteoric iron rumored to have fallen during the doom. Between Stormwing's shoulder blades a saddle of boiled leather and whalebone curved like a dorsal fin, narrow and cruel. He mounted without ceremony. Talons rattled on rock as the dragon felt his weight, a scant addition to its burgeoning might. Steam hissed from its jaws. The chainmail flags at Euron's shoulders smoked. He dug heels against blade-sharp rib plates and whispered, "Fly or fall." Stormwing unfurled wings broad as the deck of Silence. Wind howled beneath them, a sudden gale conjured by their beating. Pebbles lifted, skittering into the night. Euron clenched the harness lines and laughed aloud as the dragon leapt. Gravity vanished. The world wheeled. Moonlight spun into a silver whirlpool beneath. For one ragged instant, they plummeted, belly kissing the cliff face. Then Stormwing pumped mighty strokes and the sky accepted them. They rose above the sea tower spire, above the galleys anchored like toys in the harbor, above the shrieking gulls wheeling in confusion. Euron tasted cold clouds like knives on his tongue. Salt tears streamed from his empty socket, and his good eye widened until the world seemed no bigger than that gaze. Below, torch lanes snaked across Pikey's causeway as defenders scurried, pointing up with spear and prayer. The dragon banked, wings setting air, tail lashing. Euron pressed flat against the saddle, feeling the beast's muscles bunch like iron cables. Mad elation coursed through him. This was more than ship or storm or spear. It was dominion born of myth. Stormwing shrieked, exhaled a curtain of pale fire that seared moisture from the clouds. Light turned the waves into hammered bronze. Euron cried out in harmony, triumph raw and ringing. For one heartbeat, he fancied he heard an answering roar across leagues of sea. A distant sibling's challenge, perhaps, or only thunder caught in memory. They circled twice before gliding toward the eastern horizon, where dawn hinted behind slate racks. Euron guided the dragon along currents invisible to mortal charts, letting instinct choose their path. They passed above the lonely Tower of 10 Towers, where the Lady of Harlaw looked up from her lamplit scrolls and dropped Quill in shock. They skirted Ironholt, its beacon fire dim against Stormwing's glare. They crossed the flint cliffs, where fisher huts shook as roofs thrummed under wingbeat. When the sun crowned, they banked west and returned, Euron mindful not to exhaust his mount. Stormwing alighted on the same promontory with surprising grace, claws scoring rock. It bowed its head. Euron slid free, knees weak as a cabin boy's on first voyage. He kissed the dragon's smoking snout. Ash clung to his lips. He savored it. "You have tasted the world," he whispered. "Next, it shall taste you." Letters poured into Pike thereafter. Pleas, threats, offers. Lord Grafton of Gulltown wrote of mutual profit if Euron lent dragon wardship against the Vale Knights. Paxter Redwine swore by every grape in the arbor that he would pay 10,000 dragons in gold for the beast's destruction. From King's Landing a terse scroll arrived, stamped with the hand's sigil, demanding parley under truce. Euron fed the Redwine letter to Stormwing. who crunched seal and parchment alike, swallowing greedily. The Gull Town offer he shelved. Perhaps one day he'd set his dragon upon the eerie sky cells just to hear the mountain echo screams. The missive from King's Landing he read thrice before pricking his thumb and smearing blood across the hand's wax. And answer enough. The maesters of Old Town convened in the starry sept, 7 candles, blazing tall as men around the crystal altar. They debated chaos, fire, prophecy. Some argued to treat with Euron, to buy him off with gold and titles. Others favored sending a faceless assassin or conjuring wildfire storms from the secrets of dark pyromancers. Archmaester Belden urged calm inquiry. Dragons obey natural law. Kill their food, they starve. But the sea choked any hope of blockade, for Greyjoy longships prowled like wolves at night. Amid these debates, a novice ran breathless into the hall. A shadow bright as comets seen over the Shield Islands. Flames in the sky. Panic rippled like lightning across still water. The Archmaesters broke counsel in confusion. Some rushing to tall windows. Others descending to dungeons where black powder residue might yet hold answers. Euron struck sooner than even he planned. Not Old Town. First, proof of power. Spectacle carved into rumor as deep as a maester's chain link. Tumbleton squatted on the banks of the Mander. Fields green with midsummer barley. A modest town of thatch and timber, famous only for passing armies in ancient wars. It housed a sept, 2 taverns, a market square, and a toll bridge of aged oak. Perfect fodder. Under moonless dark Victorian's fleet, slipped half a dozen longships past the Mander estuary shallows. Oars muffled, sails furled, they glided like shark fins upriver until Tumbleton slept half dreaming of harvests. Then Stormwind came, its wing beats shattering silence, like hammers on glass. Euron rode bare-chested, painted in swirls of black ironwood ash, eye-burning azure. He loosed a war horn fashioned from the gullwing of Silence's first Métis. Native song pitched to a dragon's ear. Stormwing twisted in mid-air and exhaled. Fire fell. Roofs ignited in lines. Thatched straw erupted. Sparks skipping house to house faster than men could flee. Barley fields caught next, turning emerald to gold to black. Chickens roosting in low rafters combusted, flailing torchbirds that spread panic further. The Sept's wooden bell tower collapsed under heat, spilling bronze bells that tolled madly as they rolled molten through the streets. Stormwind landed upon the toll bridge, weight splintering ancient beams. River water hissed where falling sparks met current. Refugees jammed the opposite bank, shrieking. A single gout of flame cut them off, painting the water orange. Smoke rose in a pillar that some watching shepherds swore touched the moon. From his saddle Euron bellowed high Valyrian commands. The dragon obeyed as if bloodbound, sweeping wings to fan embers into hurricane. Wind drove burning hail across North Bank cottages. The sweetest song he had ever heard was the crack of timbers and the muffled whoosh when sellers of lamp oil succumbed. Dawn found Tumbleton reduced to ember bones. Charcoal stink drifted 30 leagues, reaching Old Town's highest vein by dusk. River traffic became snarls of wreckage choking the Mander like driftwood after storm. By week's end refugees poured into Bitterbridge and High Garden alike, their stories growing with each retelling. Eyes melted, sky aflame, Demon King astride a beast of night. In King's Landing the small council met behind closed doors. Queen Regent Marguerite Tyrell demanded action. Fists clenched white upon the lacquered table. "My people burn," she cried. "Where are the royal dragons?" There were none, only rumors Daenerys Targaryen sailed still from Slaver's Bay. The Iron Throne's coffers rang hollow. Wildfire stores were depleted after Euron's previous raid upon the Blackwater's granaries. Lord Arayn Waters urged a naval strike upon Pike, but Grand Maester Mellis warned that dragons are storms incarnate. Ships burn before bolts find scale. It was Qyburn, gaunt and smiling softly, who suggested a different weapon. Chains heavier than anchors, ballistae with wound steel cords, and scorpion bolts tipped in shadowbinder glass. Yet all knew such engines required time, gold, and men willing to face nightmare. And time dwindled like candles in a gale. Euron prepared for the second flight of conquest. while Victarion oversaw refitting of Iron Victory with reinforced deck shelters, proof against accidental draconic flare. Euron delved into older arts. Qarth's warlock had spoken once of Shade of the Evening steeped in dragon's blood producing dreams that bent the future. Euron possessed no dragon's blood yet, but Stormwing shed scales each morning, thin and brittle as fish bones. He ground these to powder, mixed with the blue liquor, and drank beneath the ruined prayer trees of Naga's Hill. Vision seized him. He saw a city of pale towers streaked with soot as Stormwing perched upon a shattered sept dome, raining molten glass onto weeping crowds. He saw a silver queen kneeling in chains, her 3 dragons circling overhead yet unable to descend because their wings melted to tattered parchment. He saw a throne not of swords but of twisted anchors and barnacle-encrusted spears, and upon it he sat crowned in flames, Stormwing coiled around tall back like a lover's arm. When he stretched forth his hand, the world cracked, and the sea came boiling in. He woke laughing and choking on ash. Polliver dabbed his brow, eyes wide with silent worry. Euron seized her wrist. Summon the smiths. The dragon's harness needs spikes, obsidian, Valyrian steel if we have it. She nodded, tears shimmering. He pulled her close, breathed the scent of honey and fear. And fetch me the warlocks chained in the oblight. Their tongues might amuse the hatchling. Stormwing's growth accelerated. By the 4th week its wingspan outstripped a fishing yawl. Leather ridges thickened, claws curved like sickles. Hunger grew monstrous. 7 sheep at dawn, a cow by dusk. Euron watched the beast's eyes swirl from molten gold to burnished bronze, intelligence sharpening like a whetted blade. One afternoon, as Euron approached with a goat carcass, Stormwing snapped at his hand, testing. The teeth grazed his gauntlet, sparks flying. Euron slapped the snout with a mailed fist. "I am blood of your blood," he snarled in Valyrian. "Bite again and I'll flinch your wing." The dragon hissed, pupils narrowing to slits, but it backed off, bowing head in grudging submission. Euron stroked the hot scales. Power must be fenced, not feared. Euron Damfair attempted exorcism. He came to the dragon's muse, trailing seaweed and chanting the drowned god's words, sprinkling salt water. Stormwing recoiled, smoke curling from jaws. Euron stepped between. "Take your prayers to the rocks," he told his brother. "They are as useful." Damfair's gaze flicked to Stormwing, to Euron. "The sea will claim you both. Perhaps. But the sky claims me first." He gestured sharply. Guards seized the priest. "Lock him beneath the tower. When the dragon molts again, the drowned god shall have his champion back, in ashes." Euron was dragged away, still chanting. Stormwing watched, head cocked, then belched a stream of cinders that set a tapestry smoldering. Euron laughed, clapping. In Highgarden, Mace Tyrell convened bannermen beneath a canopy of golden roses. Bitterbridge knights clamored for reprisal. Lord Oakhart demanded that Tyrell fleets sail at once. Mace deferred to Lady Olenna, whose sharp tongue pruned wild strategies like dead branches. "We starve the Kraken," she said. "Cut his tentacles. Blockade the Iron Isles. Pay sell sails to hunt him on every tide." But gold had to cross seas, and sell sails feared dragonfire more than coin beckoned. Meanwhile, Old Town's Hightower beacon, once bright guidance, burned day and night in Morse code sparks, warning all ships within sight. Dragon at large. Trade dwindled. Spice galleys from Lys diverted to Dorne. Grain hulks lurked off Tarth awaiting escort. Panic, like mildew, seeped deep between ledger pages. Euron made gifts. To Victarion he gave a helm fashioned from a kraken's skull, eyes set with smooth opals the color of dawnfire. To Torwald Browntooth he presented a blade forged of reforged chain links, etched with runes claiming immunity to dragon heat. Rumor swelled. Some said the blade drank flame. Torwald tested it by plunging into a hearth. The steel glowed, but never melted. Dissent quieted behind awe. Yet, not all bowed. Eric Ironmaker nursed doubt, muttering that dragons hatch 3 at a time in the songs, and Euron's lone beast spelled bad omen. One night he called the Crow's Eye a charlatan, within hearing of 2 deckhands. By morn, Eric's longship shield-bearer found him hanging beneath the sea tower archway, beard soaked in lamp oil, his corpse a blackened husk. No witness spoke, but Stormwing's prints burnt into stone told all. After that, silence reigned. The second flight targeted only ships. Euron led Stormwing seaward, far beyond the Scissors, where Redwine war galleys patrolled in wedges. Dawn spread thin pink across wave crests when lookout horns blared. Sailors scrambled to ballistae. Cords thrummed, bolts streaked like angry wasps. Most fell short. The few reaching Stormwing shattered on scales or glanced off the harness. The dragon dove, wings hugged tight. A falling spear cloaked in shriek and smoke. It cut through the mainmast of the gallant grape like a hot wire through cheese. Splinters fountained skyward. The mast toppled, rigging dragging men screaming over rails. Flame followed, a horizontal cataract that turned the polished deck planks into glowing ruin. Pitch stores ignited. Within heartbeats, the ship became a floating candle stub. Next came Arbor's Pride, then Summer Wine. Stormwing's breath needed only brush sails to set them alight. Canvas roared, rigging sagged, hull paint blistered. Sailors dove into waters alive with burning tar, where most drowned or boiled. Euron guided, with subtle shifts of weight and reins, feeling the dragon's hunger ripple beneath him. He let it feed, not on flesh but on fear. By sunrise, 7 ships were charred, hulks listing or sunk. Smoke columns lined the horizon like funeral pyres. Stormwing circled once, saluted the dead with a roar so triumphant gulls fled leagues. Euron lifted his horn and blew a single note. Long, low, final. Then they wheeled north, leaving wreckage to the waves. Later that evening at Pike, he ordered barrels of arbor wine rolled off the quayside, pouring into the sea. Let the Reach taste its own tears, he declared. Word raced faster than ravens. Merchants refused to sail without triple pay. Ports barred Ironborn even when no dragons showed. Linen prices spiked in Bravos. Grain in King's Landing. Small folk cursed Greyjoy's name as they scraped cauldrons. In taverns from Stony Sept to Maidenpool, singers pen new verses. The crow's eyes wing, the night flame of Pike, Stormwing's shadow. Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, meanwhile, crossed the narrow sea with an army of unsullied and sellsword captains licking sudden lips at talk of kindled dragons. Her 3, Drogon, Rhaegal, Viserion, circled her flagship in restless orbits. At dusk the queen perched on Drogon's shoulders, staring westward where gray memory of smoke smudged the horizon. She felt a pull, kinship perhaps, or rivalry carried on winds. Another, she whispered, stroking black scales. Born of fire but bound to salt. Drogon answered, with a rumble, deep as shifting earth. Across cloud and wave, Stormwing lifted snout to sky, sensing a distant thunder echo within its bones. 2 dragons paused in flight an ocean apart, each marking the other at gut-deep level. A tremor of ancient blood. Euron's dreams sharpened in intensity. Each cup of shade of the evening, steeped with scale powder, flung him into vistas filled with screaming constellations. Stars skidding across heavens like sparks off a forge. He saw the wall devoured by green flame. He saw river run drowned as the trident boiled. He saw the Iron Throne melted into glowing slag. Yet always he was smiling. Stormwing's head resting on his lap, like a tame hound made of night. Polliver watched over him, dabbing sweat from his brow, pressing cool linen scented with myrrh. He caught her gaze once, delirious. "Will you ride a dragon, little dove?" he asked. She shook her head, tears cutting silent tracks. He laughed. "Then you shall ride Death's shadow." Maester Cerwyn of Pike compiled reports. Stormwing now measured nose to tail 15 paces, wings 30. Flame-tested true blue at hottest core. Flight duration an hour and a half before fatigue. The Maester noted scale shedding accelerated every fortnight, indicating growth spurt. He recommended doubling cattle tribute from Harlaw, and reaffirmed need for chain castings on roof beams. He ended with a single line in pale ink. Recommend caution. Beast intelligence appears equal to hound, perhaps higher. Euron read the scroll, then dipped quill, added beneath. intelligence measured only by ambition. Mine is limitless. He sealed the parchment and sent it to Keyburn at King's Landing, gift wrapped in a cask, containing Eric Ironmaker's charred skull. Let the Lannisters weigh that warning. On a windless noon, Stormwing climbed a spiral of thermals 3,000 feet above Pike Dotite. Euron leaned against the saddle bows, cloak snapping. From such height, the world looked a map rendered in frost and mirror. Sea-silver patches of tide, wedges of field, gray knuckles of keep-tops. He spoke to the dragon without words, merely will, a suggestion to bank east. Stormwing obeyed. Bond deepened with each ride, leather straps becoming mere ornament. One day, Euron knew, no harness would be needed. They arrowed toward the rills. A merchant caravan crawled along a forest track below, wagons heavy with autumn's first brandywine. Euron guided Stormwing into a steep dive, but at last instant tugged reins and angled away. Let them live, he decided. Fear thrives on uncertainty. That evening, Victarion sought audience. Old Town Reedies, he reported. Scorpions on the Hightower's balconies. Tyrell fleet, 10 miles offshore. Euron stroked the dragon-scale orb he used as paperweight. Let them build. The higher the tower, the brighter the blaze. We cannot fight 2 dragons, Victarion pressed. If the Silver Queen lands, then she will fight me, or court me. Euron's grin bared teeth. Prophecy speaks of a dragon with 3 heads. Perhaps I am the 3rd, Dotchua. Victarion crossed arms. You put stock in riddles. Riddles shape empires. Euron rose, cloak rolling. Gather the captains at dawn. Have them bring iron fetters suitable for a queen. Victarion hesitated, then bowed slightly, retreating. Night deepened. Stormwing roosted on the sea tower pinnacle, wings tucked, eyes half-lidded but alert. The wind carried scents. Brine, tar, distant pine smoke. From the ocean, a lone horn sounded, 3 mournful notes. A funeral barge, perhaps, carrying some lore drowned off the sisters. The dragon watched until the sound faded, then closed its eyes, exhaling a plume that shimmered under starlight. In his chamber, Euron penned a final message. To the lords of the Reach, it began. Lay down your crowns of summer flowers and bring forth your daughters. I will choose one to mother dragons. Refuse, and every harvest shall roast upon the stalk. He signed in blood and sealed with a scale. Polliver, unable to speak, pointed at the parchment and shook her head vigorously. Euron stroked her cheek tenderly. The world is born anew in fire, my sweet. We are only midwives. Tears slid down her face. He tasted one, saltier than any sea. Dawn. Cold mist cloaked Pike, gray tendrils curling through halls. The captains gathered on the causeway courtyard, iron fetters displayed upon a long table like serpents of war. Victarion stood at their head, arms folded. Euron appeared clad in scaled leather-dyed midnight blue, Stormwing gliding behind him. Talons clacked stone. Fetters rattled as men instinctively stepped back. We sail for Old Town, Euron announced, voice cutting fog. The Hightower will fall. The Citadel's bells shall toll our triumph. A murmur rose. Torwald knelt first, thumping chest with fist. Others followed. Only one hesitated. Young Captain Gorlan Spar, whose father had died screaming aboard a Reach carrack 2 winters ago. He stared at the dragon, lips ashen. And if the Tyrell scorpions strike true? Stormwing's head snapped toward the voice. Smoke pulsed. Euron smiled slightly. Then we hit the scorpions first. He gestured. The dragon spat a short jet, incinerating the fetter table in roaring blast. Iron heated orange. Wood vanished. Captains gasped, heat buffeting their faces. Euron stepped through the smoke, unburnt. Questions. Silence answered. Good. Victarion will lead vanguard. I shall come by sky. He turned to Stormwing, swung astride. The dragon unfurled wings, thunder sounding as air yielded. Then with one downward stroke, they climbed beyond the mist, into rising sun that rimmed scale edges in molten gold. Below, Ironborn cheered. Some wept. And far across the reach, farmers looked up from sickles, thinking thunder approached, unaware that thunder bore a name, and soon, their world. Sea fog slithered across the Iron Man's bay like pale serpents, coiling around mastheads and licking the tide-black rocks beneath Pikey's battered arches. Dawn had scarcely bled into the sky when Euron Greyjoy stood upon the sea tower battlements, cloak snapping in the damp wind. Stormwing crouched at his side. The dragon's wings, vast as war banners sewn from night itself, flexed restlessly. Each pull of sinew made the parapet groan. Heat shimmered off ebony scales, distorting the world into a wavering mirage of hunger and promise. Below, the causeway courtyard thrummed with iron. Victorian marshaled captains, barking orders that clanged like hammers, lashed the powder casks in double nets, reef the sails for storm approach, load the mangonels with clay pots of Greek fire, stolen from Taroshi smugglers. One by one, a procession of salt and steel men knelt in the surf to baptize blades in brine. Half prayer, half oath to whatever god dared oversee this tilt between sea and sky. Euron watched them as a hawk watches field mice, not with affection but with predatory calculation. Each man, every ship, every burning heart was tinder for the conflagration he intended to kindle upon Old Town's proud stones. He slid a gloved hand along Stormwing's neck, feeling vibration hum beneath scales. An unspent thundercloud confined to flesh and bone. The bond between rider and beast had thickened like hardened pitch, forged in fire, tempered by wind. Thoughts no longer required words. A twitch of his fingers upon a rein, a shift of weight in the saddle. And the dragon understood. Likewise, Stormwing's pulse of rising fury coursed into Euron's own veins until their ambitions fused. An alloy stronger than Valyrian steel. A runner approached, breathless, cloak plastered to thin shoulders by mist. "Your Grace," he stammered, bowing low enough to wet hair in puddles. "A Maester Kerwin requests audience. Urgent?" Euron's smile cut like obsidian. "Send him up." The boy fled. Stormwing hissed after him, a guttering blast that ruffled the runner's cloak with heat. Kerwin emerged moments later, cheeks flushed from the ascent, parchments clutched like talismans. "Reports from Harlaw, Your Grace." He adjusted rattling chain links at his throat. 2 Tyrell birding cogs landed at 10 Towers. "They claim parley, but maybe scouts." "Let them scout," Euron said. "They'll find ashes for their trouble." He plucked a parchment, scanned neat rows of ink, livestock ledgers tallied against dragon appetite. The numbers strained. The Isles could not birth sheep fast enough to keep pace with Stormwing's growth. "Update these quotas," he murmured, dipping quill. "Double tithes from Blacktide. Triple from Orkmont." He flicked the parchment back. A droplet of red ink, no blood, stained the margin. Kerwin swallowed, but nodded. "There is other matter," the Maester ventured. "Rumor of the Silver Queen grows. Fleets from Pentos swear they spied her dragons over the stepstones. If her course bends west—" "Let it," Euron said, eye glinting skyward. "A dance requires partners." Stormwing's tail lashed stone, sending chips skittering into foaming surf. The ironborn armada left Pike beneath a bruised sky tattered by lightning. Silence led, crimson sails unfurled like torn hearts, gold kraken sigil rippling. Close behind rode Iron Victory, gunwales bristling with scorpions hastily lashed to deck timbers. 40 longships followed, hulls low and lean, oars punching white scars across gray water. Above them Stormwing soared, Euron astride, all leather and laughter and smoke. Each time the dragon's shadow swept a deck, men raised fists, cheering themselves hoarse, though cheers often faltered into nervous silence as heat prickled scalps. They made open water by noon and turned southeast, hugging the shadowed lee of Fair Isle, where abandoned fishing hamlets gaped black-mouthed at passing doom. At dusk a squall descended, wind screeching through rigging. Lightning forked from slate clouds, but Stormwing dove toward each blaze with relish, swallowing incandescent air as though drawing nourishment from storm hearts. Euron felt the charge crown each scale, smelled ozone in every exhalation. He rode the tempest until masts vanished below like bone spines in rolling fog. Only then did he wheel toward the flagship and descend, landing with an impact that shuddered keel to keelson. Deck planks smoked beneath claw. Victarion approached, helm beneath arm, rain purling on bronze cuirass. "Scouts report a Tyrol screen 2 leagues south," he shouted over thunder. 20 cogs, light arms. Euron's grin flashed. "We hunt. Nightfall makes aim poor. Nightfall makes fear rich." Victarion hesitated. He always did before slaughter. But the thunder masked his sigh. "Which ships?" "All of them." The first Tyrol cog burned almost by accident. Stormwing sliced through its mast on a passing swoop, but stray sparks from the dragon's breath found hard rope and new canvas still stiff with pitch. Within breaths, flames towered higher than the yards, painting the rain orange. Sailors leapt into waves already slick with flaming debris. Their screams wove harmony with the storm's roar, a fugue that echoed across black water to where companion cogs reeled. Panic scattered the enemy line like kicked anthills. Some vessels tried to tack windward, others cut anchor in futile scramble. One collided broadside into its neighbor as both collapsed into spinning ruin. Euron guided Stormwing through the chaos, selecting targets with surgeon's taste. A wheelhouse here, a powder magazine there. Each surgical lance of dragonfire, spalled planks, blew hatches, erupted holds. Explosions flung green-tinted gouts as hidden wildfire caches cooked off. Rain hissed to steam, cloaking the battlefield in sulphurous haze. Below, ironborne longships rode between debris, harpoons ready. Survivors were plucked half-drowned, their wrists chained for later tribute. Some captives begged mercy in flowery Reach accents. Others cursed, invoking the Seven. None mattered. Every soul fed rumor, and rumor fed dread. By midnight, the sea burned in widening slicks, a floating funeral pyre. In its reflection, Euron saw his own silhouette atop monstrous wings, haloed in flame, and judged it good. Dawn found the fleet anchoring at the mouth of the Honeywine, Old Town's lifeline. Fog clung low yet parted enough to reveal distant Hightower, a lighthouse spire lancing sky, beacon pulsing pale against gray. Even at 10 leagues, Stormwing's keen sight marked scorpion nests bristling along balconies, each engine crouched like a wooden mantis, iron sprung to strike. Fabric weather shields failed to conceal stacks of quarrels, tipped obsidian black. Euron's mood brightened. "They've sharpened needles for us," he noted to Victarion during War Council convened in Silence's stern cabin. Maps cluttered the table, corners pinned with daggers. Pale lantern light flickered over faces. Torwald Browntooth, Geron Goodbrother, Harl the Half-Hand, Ralph Kenning, each hardened commander bearing marks of both sea and sin. Victarion rolled out a fresh vellum, inked with Hightower harbors, Tyrell boom chain placements, predicted depths. "Chain booms here," he said, tapping. Breakwaiters, layered with sharpened stakes, they caged themselves. "Cages burn," Euron murmured, drumming fingertips. "But chains can unmake stone." He produced a small earthen pot, sealed whale wax, thick. When the lid cracked, pungent fumes filled the cabin. Resin, brimstone, charcoal, and something sharper that pricked nostrils like blades. "Carthian hell breath," he explained. "Wildfire's crueler cousin. Water spreads it instead of quenching. We sling pots onto chain hinges. Iron melts, links fail, gate opens." Browntooth whistled softly. "How many?" "Enough." Euron closed the jar. Meanwhile, Stormwing splits their sky, draws volleys. While they aim up, Victarion rows iron-shot hulls against their walls. By the time the Archmaesters look down, tide will carry fire beneath their windows. Then Mobaria. Discussion rolled like low surf. Risks, winds, timing of tide peaks. Euron listened distantly. Attention half on the dragon, pacing deck above. Through wooden planks he felt wing beats thrum. Stormwing wanted the sky. He would give it, not just the sky but the world. The plan resolved. Assault at dusk, on a spring tide. War councils ended, captains dispersed to ready men. Sharpen axes. grease catapult arms with whale tallow. Euron lingered alone, rolling a Tyrell signet ring between fingers, prize taken from the smoking wreck of summer wine. Emeralds caught lantern flare, fracturing into shards of green reminiscent of wildfire. He flicked the ring into his wine and drank it down. Mid-afternoon hush blanketed Old Town. Merchants shuttered stalls. Sept bells tolled in uneasy cadence. From battlements atop the high tower, Lord Lytton Hightower, reclusive, unshaven, stood beside daughter Melora clutching a far eye. They watched scattering sails of the ironborn fleet beyond estuary fog. Priests of the seven led prayers on every street corner. Novice acolytes ferried barrels of holy water to septry tiles, as though sanctity might repel flame. Along curtain walls, scorpion crews drilled, latching heavy quarrels to winched ropes, adjusting angle, rehearsing. Deep in the citadel, archmaesters argued in hushed corridors. Some advocated retreat to interior holdfasts of starry sept. Others insisted knowledge must be defended at blade point. A conclave of alchemists, seldom heeded, begged to deploy wildfire caches stockpiled since Maegor's day. Their pleas joined the cacophony until Lord Hightower overruled. Wildfire would be reserved to flood streets only if walls fell. A last resort that might as easily immolate defenders as foe. Lanterns glowed early as tension thickened into paralysis. Everyone waited for night, although none wished it to come. Sunset bled scarlet across the Honeywine just as springtide turned flood. Ironborn longships emerged from fog lines like predators from reeds, ore banks dipping in perfect silence. No drums beat. The rhythm lived in shoulders and hearts. At prow of each vessel, bladders of hell breath swayed, slung beneath mangonel arms locked low for skip-fling trajectory. Rowers pulled, sweat mixing with salt spray. Stormwings shadowed them overhead, huge against dying light. Scorpion lookouts shouted, towers rang alarm gongs. Arbalest bolts loosed, long arcs etched in glowing pitch, tails aflame with tar-burning braziers. They fell short or wide. One clipped stormwings left wingtip, tearing membranous skin. The dragon shrieked, but wound ignited rage, not fear. Euron wheeled it into a dive. He opened with a strafing run along the southern rampart, where defenders crowded behind merlons. White-hot flame washed parapets, vaporizing flesh, before bone had time to char. Stone popped and spalled, launching shards that mowed ranks behind. A second pass pulverized a scorpion nest. Torsion arms snapped, gears screamed, timber exploded. The tower's beacon guttered red as molten metal sheared rope pulleys and cascaded sparks inward. Below, Victarion squadron reached the boom chain. Mangonels thumped. Earthen jars arced, shattering on waterline, spewing emerald black fire that clung to iron. Chain links glowed red, then white. Metal sagged under tidal pull. Crewmen heaved grapnels, hauling chains slack toward keels so weight bent final struts. With a scream like ripping hulls, the barrier parted. River surge carried ironborn longships through into Old Town's inner harbor, like wolves breaching sheepfold. Harbor galleys tried to intercept. 2 Tyrell patrol boats advanced, but Stormwing swooped, flame turning them to blossoming pyres. Burning debris rained onto warehouses. Crates of silk and wine erupted into roaring tinder. Smoke towered, swirling into columns that mirrored the Hightower's beacon, until skyline blurred between signal and destruction. On dockside quays, gold cloaks on loan from King's Landing attempted ranks, but honey-colored surcoats ignited under spattering cinders. Some broke, plunging into water only to find hell-breath carpet floating, turning river into writhing green inferno. Others fled inland, dropping spears to claw smoldering cloth from limbs. Victarion's troops stormed ashore. They flooded spice markets, cut down Myers traders hiding beneath bolt counters, dragged bolts of velvet to feed spreading flames. Torwald's men scaled rope ladders along seawall, opening postern sallyports from inside. Cannons, stolen Bravosi bronze pieces, mounted on oaken carriages, were rolled forward and fired chains into the Hightower's lower bastions, rocking foundations. Yet defenders were not idle. From high embrasures, engineers loosed firepots of their own, smashing invaders in showers of tar and sandglass shards. A trebuchet hidden behind warehouse roofs lobbed giant stones. One crushed an iron-borne ram ship, splintering hull and masts. Another sheared the prow off Iron Victory, pitching men into frothing water. Amid the clash, Euron guided Stormwing to the Hightower's mid-tier balcony, landing amid crushing rubble. Archers loosed point blank. Arrows pinged like hail off glazed scales. Euron dismounted, cut down nearest bowman with a backhand stroke. He stepped over twitching corpses, eye fixed on an oaken door banded in bronze. Behind it, if reports were true, lay Lord Leighton's famed upper library. Scrolls and tomes gathered since the Dawn Age. He slammed shoulder against door once, twice. Hinges shrieked, wood split. Inside, darkness reeked of dust and lamp oil. Shelves soared 3 stories. Ladders glided on iron rails. Librarians cowered behind overturned writing desks. Some brandished brass candlestands like feeble spears. Euron tossed a lantern into central aisle. Flames spread across parchment like brush fire on dry moor. Letters twisting into burning runes. Stormwing pushed head through shattered doorway, exhaled a narrow jet. Shelves toppled, scrolls curled to ash. Euron laughed, arms raised as though conducting symphony. He plucked a leather-bound folio from near flames, Codices Draconis Valeria, and tossed it into Dragon's maw. Stormwing gulped happily. Behind him boots thundered. A squad of Hightower guards in silvered mail advanced, leader brandishing a poleaxe tipped obsidian. Euron spun low, parried, locked axe lug with sword guard, yanked. The axe flew. He thrust pommel into man's throat, crunched larynx. Others closed. Stormwing's tail whipped through doorway, pulverizing them against bookcase. Over roars of fire and collapsing timber, a horn sounded from tower top, 3 wailing blasts that cut through clamor. A scorpion crew above had repositioned, angling giant bolt downward into library breach. Euron saw movement, smoky silhouette of crank arms ratcheting. He vaulted onto Stormwing's back. "Sky!" he commanded in Valyrian. The dragon crouched and leapt through gaping balcony hole, wings flaring into night. Bolts shattered stone behind, one grazing tail tip. They spiraled outward. Euron willed a tight pivot and directed a blast of flame halfway up the Scorpion Tower. Wood support sagged. The engine toppled off parapet, spinning end over end until it smashed into courtyard far below. Smoke blanketed plaza, but patches parted to reveal Tyrell reinforcements streaming from city gates. Columns of men-at-arms in green and gold, helms crested with silver roses. They formed shield lines across Market Bridge, presenting rows of pikes. Euron dipped Stormwing low, letting the beast's bulk cast dread before flame. Yet he did not burn them, yet. Instead, he circled, gauging range of new scorpions arrayed along city wall behind. On second pass, he saw her, a figure in shimmering plate of copper gold atop a white destrier. Visor up, Ser Brienne of Tarth, renowned even here, leading a pocket of armored knights sworn to coterminous houses, Oakhart, Beesbury, Crane. Her sword rose, saluting him in challenge. Heat shimmer bent her shape, but did not erase defiance. Euron chuckled. Brave, but foolish. He considered charcoaling her where she sat, yet some death served greater purpose prolonged. Instead he pulled reins, sent Stormwing banking toward wharfs where Hellbreath still fumed. Winds shifted. Smoke rolled over night lines, masking the dragon's retreat. Through night's remainder, battles surged street by street. Ironborn raiding parties spilled from alleys, looting granaries, torching septs. Hightower defenders shuttered gates behind delaying barricades, collapsing keystones into avenues to choke advance. Citizens fled towards Starry Sept, forming a tide of desperate humanity that impeded both armies. From above, Stormwing harried strongpoints with flame strikes precise as arrow shot, breaches Victarion exploited with shock teams. Each foray deepened wedge of conquest, but progress cost blood. Torwald fell speared through thigh, carried screaming to longship surgeons. Har lost a hand. Still, morale soared whenever dragonfire soared overhead, painting constellations of ruin across rooftops. As false dawn paled eastern clouds, Euron set Stormwing atop shattered dome of scribes sept, surveying. Fires dotted Old Town like new volcanoes. Smoke pillars merged into vast anvil whose underside glowed ember red. Bells clanged sporadically. Alarms, collapse, funerals. Somewhere a chorus sang ragged hymns. Dragon roar drowned them mid-verse. Yet Hightower still stood. Upper tiers scorched. Walls spiderwebbed with cracks. But Beacon burning defiantly. Its scorpions had dwindled, crews gutted or fled. Yet those remaining drew bead on Stormwing each time he neared, forcing wide arcs. More pressing, Tyrell main host, encamped beyond Honeywine Fields, had yet to fully engage. Sunrise would bring their banners, tens of thousands of armored spears, hedge knights, maybe even Highgarden's siege towers bristling with fresh scorpions. Stormwing could raise armies, yes, but attrition and hunger might dull flame. A protracted siege favored defenders who could withdraw behind thick masonry and await allied relief. Euron needed a blow so brutal that Hightower hearts cracked before midday. He found answer in memory of Carthian warlock's final secret. Dragonfire alone bends men, but stormfire shatters gods. The warlock spoke of binding lightning to flame, an art lost with Valyria. Yet Euron, half-mad genius, had prepared. In silence's hold lay half a dozen black glass jars, filled with living fireflies captured on Sithorio's plains. Creatures rumored to lure storms when released in clusters, their glow aligning cosmic winds. Combined with hellbreath vapors, lightning might be drawn earthward, straight into Tower Stone, splitting it like oak. He relayed orders via signal flags to Victarion. Within an hour, raiders rode skiffs through side canals, ferrying crates of stormflies onto quay beneath the scribes, sept. Euron dismounted, oversaw transfer onto dragon harness hooks. Stormwing eyed boxes curiously, snorted. Dawn broke at last, a sickle of red sun peeking over River Road. Thunderheads massed northwest, borne by onshore breeze. Fortune or fate. Fly, Euron whispered against scale. Stormwing leapt. They ascended into gathering stormfront, higher than previous flights, until air thinned and breath steamed white. Below, Old Town shrank to ember-scarred Model Town. Euron unclasped first stormfly jar and loosed the lid. Bioluminescent insects cascaded into wind like sparks from invisible forge, swirling around Dragon's wake. He released a second, then third. Green-gold motes drifted upon upper currents, drifting ahead of developing cumulonimbus. At first nothing, only hush broken by wing beats and distant cry of rooks. Then a low rumbling, as the world's bowels shifted. Clouds mottled bruise purple, veins of silver flickering. Static prickled Euron's beard. Stormwing sensed power. Its pupils constricted to slits, chest expanding with deep inhalations. Lightning blossomed, first fork harmless miles west, then another to south. Each strike closer, louder, smell of burned sky in every gust. Euron guided Stormwing into lazy spiral above Hightower. Drop lines of glowing stormflies formed shimmering net about spire. Unnatural aurora rippled, painting stone in sickly emerald. Defenders gaped skyward. Euron loosed final jar, stormflies scattering wide. He raised copper rod affixed along dragon harness, a Valyrian steel lance whose tip arced faint sparks. Dracarys, he breathed to Stormwing. The dragon conjured breath deep in core, rumble building until chest plates vibrated under Euron's legs. With a roar that split cloud, Stormwing exhaled a torrent of blue-white flame upward into swirling insect galaxy above Beacon. Flame that charged air. The storm answered. A bolt of lightning thicker than any mast slammed down channeled by flame column into Hightower Beacon. Stone exploded. Beacon oil wells lit simultaneously, geysering upward. A roar of thunder rendered hearing meaningless. Shockwave flung men from ramparts like leaves. Beacon top sheared clean, tumbling in fiery fragments through tower's belly floors, igniting timber staircases, shattering arched windows into shards that whirled outward on pressure pulse. Stormwing rocked in rebound, But Euron's grip held iron firm. The dragon shrieked triumph. Banking as incandescent rubble crashed into adjoining granaries. Blast wind raced outward, toppling scaffolds, ripping roofs off manses. Fires already smoldering burst renewed, fanned by superheated gusts. A hush, impossible after such cacophony, settled for heartbeats as every eye tracked the collapsing lighthouse, its upper quarter folding sideways. Then a great collective cry rose. Defenders' despair, raiders' exultation, civilians' terror, all woven into single terrible core. Stones rained like meteors across city. Panic turned structured defense into riot. Tyrell shield lines shattered as men looked back to see emblem of Old Town's pride crumple. Some threw pikes, bolting for cathedral refuge. Others knelt where they stood, prayers torn from throats raw with smoke. Victarion led charge across Market Bridge unopposed, hacking down what pockets of resistance remained. Euron circled once more, satisfied. Hightower's heart still pumped. Lower floors intact. But symbol was broken. Surrender would soon follow. Yet ambition whispered, not surrender. Submission. He landed Stormwing atop smoldering plaza outside Starry Sept, where refugee throngs knelt in prayer. Stones radiated heat intense enough to blister, but worshippers clung to altars hauled from inside, begging the Seven for deliverance. Euron dismounted into chorus of wails. He walked among them, boots hissing on hot flagstones, sword sheathed. He wanted no steel now, only words. Kneel, he commanded, though most already did. Kneel, not to gods who failed you, but to the dragon who saved you from further pain. An elderly mother dared raise her head. Saved? You burn us. I burn so you may rise anew, Euron replied, voice soft. The old order dies today. In its ashes, strength is forged. Choose to be strong. He gestured skyward. Stormwing loomed, maw steaming. Or choose to be cinder. Muffled voices spread, confused, broken. Some pressed foreheads to stone before him. Others crawled backward, eyes fixed on dragon. Soldiers of Hightower garrison began laying swords down one after other, forming piles of glittering surrender. Euron allowed a breath of satisfaction. Yet deeper hunger stirred. Conquest of a city was trifling next to conquest of legend. Beyond sea, Silver Queen sailed, her fire would clash his. Something primordial thrilled at prospect. The following hours blurred into ritual. Captains reporting captures, warehouses inventoried. Loot tallied. Stormwing perched atop charred stump of lighthouse, sentinel of twilight, regarding flames lapping horizon. Its scales glowed as if lit from within, reflecting not just fires below, but nascent ambition beyond mortal measure. In commandeered hall of Guild of Alchemists, Euron convened council of subjugation. Lord Leighton Hightower, soot-smeared, robes torn, arrived under guard. His eyes stared as though fixed on ruins only he could still see. Your city kneels, Euron greeted. Kneel, and your bloodline endures. Leighton tottered, stiff with pride yet hollowed. Daughter Melora propped him but said nothing. Together they bowed. The hall exhaled, as though giant bellows relaxed. The moment symbolizing reach, submission. Good, Euron said. Begin parchments of fealty. Triple tariffs to fund new order. What order? Melora whispered. Order of Flame. He reached, tore sigil pendant from her throat, replaced it with chain forged of black steel and cracked rubies. Kraken maw clutching dragon egg motif. Tell your scholars to gather what tomes the fire spared. Stormwing hungers for wisdom. Her pupils dilated. She understood threat. Night deepened. Fires ebbed as rain clouds, spent of lightning, poured cleansing sheets. Wet stone hissed under torrents, but many blazes refused to die, fueled by hell breath endless. Euron scaled ruined lighthouse interior to join Stormwing beneath ragged stars. The dragon rumbled at his approach. He settled between shoulder blades, rain drumming harness. They gazed northeast, where new constellations emerged. Far horizon gleamed faint, unnatural red, campfires of Tyrell main host repositioning. or so scouts predicted. But Euron sensed something else. A heat distinct from earthly flame, pulsing in night's veins. His heart quickened. He touched scale. A roar answered, distant yet unmistakable. Echo of draconic challenge across cloud-wrapped miles. Not Stormwing, another. Maybe 3 others. She comes, Euron murmured. Let the dance begin. Stormwing bared fangs to sky, and thunder, though no lightning followed, rolled answer deep and portentous. 2 days later, smoke still drifted from broken Hightower, when sails appeared on seaward horizon. Red hulls trimmed black, masts painted with snarling krakens, banners whipped by brisk wind. Reinforcements from Great Wick and Saltcliffe, called by Raven the Knight of Victory. They ringed harbor, securing outer waters. Yet small silhouette accompanied them, a lone cog under flag of white peace lily. Victarion signaled intercept. Before chain shot fired, messenger raised arms. Boarding party discovered parchment sealed with 3-headed dragon sigil. Script flowed in Valyrian glyphs, precise and imperious. To the crow's eye, king of ashes. I am Daenerys of House Targaryen, mother of dragons, rightful queen of the Andals and the First Men. Your crimes against Old Town and its innocence echo across seas. Yet, I believe, only dragons may judge dragons. Meet me at Black Crown 3 days hence, under surety of truce. Bring your beast. I shall bring mine. Let the sky decide who is fire made flesh. Signed only with the flame glyph, the letter smelled faint of smoke, as if sealed near dragon flame. Victarion slammed fist upon rail. It's trap, he growled. Euron read twice, thrice. A slow smile cut face, deeper than tide gouging cliff. It is destiny. He looked to where Stormwing roosted upon the lighthouse skeleton. Moonlight silvering horns. Across that same moon 3 distant shapes drifted, dragons circling beyond arrow range. Black silhouettes etched upon pale disk. The dance had begun sooner than he'd hoped. He ordered return message, etched into thin sheet of Valyrian steel. Words carved by acid, so they glowed wine red. 3 heads may be born, but only one shall wear the crown of flame. He sent it by Raven whose feathers he dipped in dragon blood. Preparations for meeting hummed through captured city. Ironborn crews patched rigging. Sharpened scorpion hooks. Reinforced hull decks with boiled leather soaked in seawater to slow burn. Within Hightower cellars, Euron brewed new batches of Shade of the Evening, steeped with powders ground from Stormwind's cast-off teeth. Harder, heavier than prior scales, infused with living fire. He drank and dreamt. Field of ash where roses once grew. Dragon wings eclipsing sun melting to tar that rained. A throne forged not of swords, anchor heads or barnacle crusts, but of bones fused into singular spine. Above sky cracked, and he stepped through into realm of endless storm. Stormwing giant now, blotting stars. Waking, he felt certainty. Only one rider would survive meeting. The dawn of parley came gray and windless. Black Crown, ancient fortress atop promontory north of Old Town, jutted into sea like ebon talon. Its basalt walls met adamant cliff, such that only narrow goat track ascended inland slope. On seaward side, sheer drop swallowed by breakers. Ruins of siege, towers, from Aegon's first conquest, still jutted along outer ditch. Charred skeletons half reclaimed by brambles. Euron ascended from south aboard Stormwing, Victarions escorting ships remaining 2 leagues off to honor truce. On rock plateau beyond ruined Barbican, white banners fluttered where Targaryen host had encamped. Unsullied ranks precise, spears erect, shields polished, mirror bright despite journey dust. At their center stood a woman in crimson riding leathers, silver hair braided down back. Beside her, 3 dragons crouched. Drogon, massive, shadow black, regal green, bronze, Viserion, pale gold. Euron rinded Stormwing to hover before landing. Dust swirled in gale of wing beats. Unsullied did not flinch. Queen Daenerys stepped forward alone, cloak snapping. Euron dismounted lightly, boots planting in gravel. Eye patch glimmered. He bowed mockingly. Your Grace. Daenerys studied him, violet eyes cool flames. Old town burns behind you, murderer. Cities are tinderboxes awaiting ignite, Euron replied. Flame chooses where to spread. Drogon rumbled. Stormwing hissed in answer. Air thickened with electric promise. We speak under truce, Daenerys said. Yet dragons speak truth, not truce. I would see whose truth prevails. Euron spread arms. Then let them dance. She mounted Drogon, flowing up saddle with grace of seasoned rider. Euron vaulted onto Stormwing. Rhaegal and Viserion leapt skyward beside Queen, triad swirling. Unsullied ranks knelt, shields raised overhead like shimmering sea. Silence cloaked plateau as titans beat upward. At 300 feet altitude, dragons wheeled into wide spiral, riders gauging. Euron felt Stormwing's muscles tense, a bowstring awaiting release. He kept rein slack, voice low. Patience, my fury. Daenerys signaled. Her two lesser dragons broke formation, flanking. Drogon charged center, maw opening into furnace glare. Stormwing met flame with flame. Blue-white jet colliding with Drogon's red inferno. Fire twisted mid-air, roaring tempest that carved clouds. Heat hammered riders. Leather smoked. But Euron pressed forward, wings driving. Ablative harness deflected some force. Stormwing's scales brightened, absorbing energy. Bolt of lightning. Residual stormflies, still clinging to clingy hide, sprang from Stormwing's crown, arcing into combined flame plume. Explosion of plasma flared, momentarily blinding. Drogon recoiled, shaken. Rhaegal dove, talons extended, but Stormwing rolled, slapping green dragon with wing underside, studded in spines. Rhaegal tumbled through vortex, shrieking. Euron laughed, exhilarated. Yet, 3-to-1 odds demanded cunning. He signaled, steep climb. Stormwing surged vertical. Viserion pursued. Drogon and Rhaegal recovered, forming trident. Higher they spiraled, into air so thin that frost rhymed Euron's beard. Stormwing's breaths came labored but fierce. Dragons behind flagged too, slower rate. But Drogon's greater mass propelled short bursts. Euron executed abrupt stall. Stormwing folded wings, dropped like spear between converging attackers. Viserion overshot. Drogon banked wide. Stormwing snapped jaws around Rhaegal's trailing leg, teeth puncturing scale. Blood sprayed hot. Euron felt metallic taste ride wind. Rhaegal flailed. Stormwing's tail hooked across Green Dragon's throat, pulling twist that wrenched shoulder joint. Euron glimpsed Daenerys' face whiten as Bond transmitted pain. She shouted command in Valyrian. Drogon folded and dove. Stormwing released grip before Drogon reached, then barrel rolled under, raking Drogon's belly. Claws screeched across black scales but failed to penetrate deep. Counterlash clipped Stormwing's right wing. Membrane tore anew where Scorpion Bolt had scarred nights earlier. Pain shot through shared mind. Euron steadied. Dragons leveled near cloud base, breath heaving. Smoke trailed wounds. Again, Euron urged. Stormwing roared, but fatigue gnawed edges of strength. Daenerys rallied her triad, though Rhaegal lagged injured. She formed wedge, Drogon lead. Others flanks. A hammer blow. They surged. Euron inhaled spiced storm breath memory. He reached into pouch, withdrew small glass sphere containing concentrated hellbreath gel. As formation closed, he hurled orb. It shattered against Drogon's snout, coating nostrils in volatile resin. Drogon's next breath ignited resin inside throat. Flame backwashed, searing soft palate. Bellow of agony jolted formation. Drogon veered, coughing jets sideways. Rhaegal and Viserion scattered, lest they be torched. Opportunity. Stormwing darted, talons sinking into Drogon's wing joint, jaws latching near neck ridge. Two titans grappled, spiraling downward through ragged cloud, wings beating convulsive storm. Horizon whipped sickeningly. Below, peaks of fortress cliffs rushed near. Daenerys clung, striking at Stormwing's eyes with dragonglass-tipped spear. Sparks flew but scale held. Euron reached. Sword-ringing steel meeting point. Sparks showered Queen's gauntlet. For a breathless instant, their gazes locked. Violet versus Sapphire, mortal wills channeling ancient beasts. Impact loomed, cliff face sheathed in basalt. At last moment, Drogon thrust wings wide, breaking. Stormwing clung still, but momentum tore them apart. Euron flung sideways in saddle. Daenerys pitched forward. Stormwing veered away, Euron wrenching reins. Drogon smashed tail first into cliff, rock erupting to shards. Daenerys tumbled, clinging to harness hook. Drogon recovered, but wing membrane shredded along trailing half. Ground war below gasped at sky spectacle. Soldiers craned as shadows danced amidst broken clouds. Rhaegal, though wounded, rose to Queen's aid. Viserion followed. Stormwing, panting, hovered, torn wing leaking rivulets of dark blood onto Euron's greaves. He gauged Warfield. Drogon grounded near cliff base, injured but not slain. Queen still mounted, rallying. Two lesser dragons circled, forming protective barrier. Euron's eyes burned. Killing Drogon here ended dance early but risk high. Stormwings wound slowed flight. He weighed options. Victory lay not solely in death but in subjugation. If he forced Queen to yield, dragons might bend. He spurred Stormwing downward in feint. Viserion interposed. Stormwing unleashed concentrated flame jet. Pale Dragon dodged but lost altitude. Rhaegal snapped at Stormwing's flank. Euron pivoted blade, slashing across Rhaegal's muzzle, carving deep line. Green bronze scales cracked like enamel. Blood misted sunlit. Queen's shout, "Enough!" Euron rinded to hover. Daenerys guided Drogon forward despite injuries. Spear lowered, but eyes imploring. Sun broke clouds, rays striping dragons in gold ribbons and smoke-torn gray. "This war ends," she called. "The realm bleeds. Yield your dragon, bend knee to rightful throne, and we rebuild instead of ruin." Euron laughed, wounds and all. "Bend knee? I would have you ride at my side, Silver Queen. Together we rule ashes, but they will be our ashes. I will not trade chains for crowns." "A pity." He shrugged. "Then let Sky decide." He gestured subtle. Stormwing inhaled deep, but chest convulsed, cough of ash betraying fatigue. Drogon, though scorched, flared wings broader still. Two forces measured each other across gulf of wind and smoke. Abrupt thunderclaps split air, not Sky's, but man's. Bark of great cannon from Iron Victory anchored below. Captain Lancers fired scorpion bolt, skyward. Shaft streaked between dragons, missing both but shattering fragile truce. Unsullied horns answered from plateau. Their own scorpions unleashed at Stormwing, twin bolts grazing flank. Pain roared through bond, dragon faltered. Euron's fury flared. "Treachery of foot soldiers," he snarled. Yet, advantage lost. He turned rein, steering Stormwing into steep dive towards sea, where ironborn ships presented refuge. Viserion winged after, but Queen recalled pursuit, seeing Drogon labor to maintain lift. She reined dragons back, content now to hold field. Stormwing vanished into final bank of smoke, dropping beyond Archer's angles. On Silence's deck moments later, Euron dismounted into outstretched arms of concerned crew. Blood soaked his cloak where Stormwing's wound dripped. Victarion cursed sight, but Euron only smiled, eyes fever bright. "Not finished," he said. "Merely intermission." He ran gloved hand along Dragon's torn wing. Wound smoked but cauterized quickly, flesh already knitting under heat. Stormwing nudged him, breath labored but fierce. "Rest," he whispered. "Next dance we end their song." Night fell heavy with storm threat. On plateau, Daenerys tended Drogon, salving scorched throat with alchemical balm. Queen's features drawn yet resolute. Rhaegal mauled, Viserion shaken, but trio alive. She gazed seaward where Kraken sails withdrew, carrying foe and fury into gloom. Resolve steeled. Tomorrow she would finish what began. On Silence, Euron drank shade of the evening richer than ink, stirred with single droplet of his own blood. Vision, swept him. He saw Iron Throne no longer molten, but forged anew from dragon bones, barbs twisting upward like frozen fire. He sat upon it, Stormwing coiled through shattered roof of Red Keep, roaring across city that knelt not from fear, but awe. Beside throne stood figure of silver hair, eyes vacant, shackled by collar of molten gold. He tasted triumph, and tasted dread in equal measure. For prophecy fed on blood of kings, and kings were few. Waking, he licked dry lips. He summoned Kerwin. Prepare healers, salves of maggot steel, and powdered sapphire. For Stormwing, and for you, your grace, I bleed when world bleeds, but world is mine to bleed. He dismissed Maester. He walked a prow, where night's sea stretched endless, stars drowned by smoke haze. He whispered to dark, 3 heads, 1 crown. Soon, flames will choose. Behind him Stormwing stirred, eyes glowing embers, gazing toward plateau with hunger deeper than ocean trench. Dawn's pale edge found battlefield unchanged, yet charged. Unsullied lines reorganized, fresh trenches cut out. Ironborn fleet, repositioned into half-moon offshore. Scorpions resetting. Between forces yawned water and air heavy with expectation. Euron considered treaties. Draw Tyrell into neutrality by ransom of Old Town Library. Tempt Hightower with seat on small council of his imagined empire. Promise Daenerys seat as equal queen. Yet lies seldom bind dragons. Only fire forges fidelity. He donned new armor, scale mail crafted overnight from Stormwing's shed plates, each interlinked by silver rivet. On chest, he fixed Kraken's sigil wrought from obsidian, eyes twin rubies. Helm forged of fused iron and dragon bone formed jagged crown. When he descended to deck, men stepped back, as though death itself walked. Victarion approached. We strike again? We strike truth, Euron answered. I ride alone. Stormwing, wing brace by tarred leather seam, knelt. Euron mounted, no saddle this time, only raw spine ridge. He untethered rein, whispered, Sky's last test. They ascended, slower but resolute. Queen's dragons launched to meet midair. In valley of wind between, armies stilled, breathing as one. Then from northern horizon a horn bellowed, deep mountainous sea. Both factions turned. New sails approached. White stag on red field. Baratheon? No. Stag crowned by flaming heart. Banners of Lord Stannis come by sea from Dragonstone. Alongside black sails of Night's Watch repurposed, and blue kraken trimmed silver. House of King Asha, once sister to Euron, now rebel. In alliance with northern forces. Their arrival split calculus into fractal chaos. Euron's laugh pealed across sky, carried by wind. More dancers join. Daenerys' face tightened. She reconsidered immediate duel. Multi-sided war threatened. Stormwing banked above converging fleets. Euron measuring swirling possibilities. He felt prophecy coil tighter. World shivering at edge of apocalyptic crescendo. Dragons, krakens, stags, wolves converging in single theater. Targaryen fire, Greyjoy tempest, Baratheon thunder, Stark ice. He tasted ashes of civilizations unborn. He shouted into gale. Come one, come all. The last song begins. Bandoama. Fire answered. Ice cracked. Sea surged. And Stormwing screamed. A sound that seemed to tear sky cloth from seam, as the age of dragons returned, drowning all lesser songs beneath its wings.